I'll say six. Oh, now it does. Yeah. Good evening. Welcome to the Arlington School District Board meeting. We're so glad that you're all here with us. We're going to start this meeting by having our land acknowledgement, and I've asked Director Watts to read that for us, and then we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. And Eric Knapp, would you mind leading us in that?
We honor the first peoples of these lands by acknowledging that the area in which we gather is within the traditional territory of the Stillaguamish tribe of Indians. The Stillaguamish people have inhabited these lands and waters since time immemorial, and their ancestors have remained in this territory to this day. The Stillaguamish people have continued to practice the traditional ways of their ancestors of fishing, hunting, and gathering. The Stillaguamish tribe has had these lands and cultural traditions passed on to them by their ancestors, who believe that everything has a spirit and that they are caretakers of these lands and waters.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And next we'll have our roll call attending.
Director Diamond.
Here.
Director Kelly.
Here.
Director Watts.
Here.
President Levesque.
Here.
Director Knapp.
Here.
Student Advisor Van Beek. Student Advisor Phillips. Superintendent Sweeting.
Here. Thank you. Next is our meeting agenda approval. Do we have any changes for the meeting agenda tonight?
I would like to make a request to amend the agenda. I request that the 2026-27 student and staff fee schedule be removed from tonight's consent agenda and presented to the board for approval at the next regular board meeting.
Okay. Seconded? Okay. And then do you have a motion to approve the agenda with that amendment?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Director Diamond, seconded by Director Kelly to amend the agenda or approve the amend the agenda and then approve the amended agenda. What A's?
Director Diamond.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Director Watts.
Yes.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. All right, the agenda is approved with an amendment. Thank you. That's a little bit fast moving in my brain. Next up is our approval of our minutes. We have a few different things to approve. We've got our study session and regular meeting minutes from June 8th. And then we have our Weston High School graduation minutes and then Arlington High School graduation minutes from June 9th and 10th. Do we have a motion to approve the study session and regular meeting minutes from June 8th?
I'll make a motion to approve this regular and study session minutes from June 28th,
Or June 8th?
June 8th.
I'll second. It's been moved by Director Diamond and seconded by Director Knapp to approve June 8th meeting minutes. Madam Clerk?
Director Diamond.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Watts.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Yes.
Director Knapp.
Aye. And thank you, that's approved. And then do we have a motion for the Weston graduation minutes from June 9th?
I make a motion we approve the special meeting event for WHS graduation in June.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Director Kelly and seconded by Director Watts to approve the Weston High School graduation from June 9th minutes.
Director Diamond.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Watts.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Yes.
Director Knapp.
Aye. And do we have a motion for our AHS graduation on June 10th?
Make a motion that we approve the special meeting event attendance for AHS graduation on June 10th.
I will second that.
It's been moved by Director Knapp and seconded by Director Diamond to approve June 10th graduation minutes. Madam Clerk?
Director Diamond.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Director Watts.
Yes.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. All right, all of those minutes are approved. Thank you very much. And that brings us to a very fun part of our meeting, our public comment portion of our meeting. And we actually have a public comment tonight. So I get to read my script. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meetings. Anyone addressing the board tonight, whether it be in person or virtually, has agreed to follow the instructions for public comment and limit their comments to 3 minutes. The board does not respond to questions during the business meeting in order to comply with the State of Washington's Open Public Meetings Act. The board's silence does not signal agreement or endorsement of the speaker's remarks. Depending on the nature of your topic or questions, the superintendent may ask staff to contact you to answer questions or provide information. The board president may interrupt or terminate an individual statement if it is uncivil or exceeds the allowed time, and each speaker will be given one opportunity to speak. And with that, I would like to welcome up PJ Weaverch to come up to the podium and begin speaking when you're up. And thank you for coming.
Yes.
Burlington Public School Board of Directors and community members for welcoming me here. I am here from Darrington School District. I'm an employee there, and I worked with Cindy Christopherson for about 8 years. And I am a liaison for all of the classified staff to come and give her best wishes. We will miss her. And we specifically want to mention a few names. Christina and Lisa Wright and Jesse, our secretary, and Judy, myself, Tracy Olander, Larry. There's about 35 or 40 of us, but we all want to wish her luck. And she was a very important part of my path. She was my SPED director, and she had a lot of faith in me. And I had a lot of faith in her, and she trusted me, and I trusted her, and we got the job done. I brought her a little treasure, and there's a funny story to it, but it's a little free floating with some tea bags because I would often cross paths with her in the staff lounge, getting my tea, her getting her tea. And the little organza bag has a little emblem on it that says faith. I had a lot of faith in her, she had a lot of faith in me, and we managed to get it done. The best part about the story is I was walking around on campus the other day over by the high school, just kind of thinking about her and what's going to happen in the future for us, the new person coming in, and wanted to wish her luck. And I looked down and there was a little marble laying in the road. And I thought maybe it was one of hers and she lost it and forgot it. I know it's not my marble because all my marbles are in room 203 underneath the cabinet. So it might be hers, might not, but I brought her marble back just in case she might need it.
Thank you.
We always appreciate public comment, and thank you today for making the trip. So great. Next up, we have our consent agenda. A whole lot of stuff on it. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved by Director Watts and seconded by Director Diamond to approve the consent agenda. Madam Clerk. Dr. Diamond.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Watts.
Yes.
President Levesque. Yes. Director Now. Aye. Thank you. That consent agenda is approved, and I wanted to take a second and ask Dr. Sweeting to talk about two important things on that consent agenda.
So I wanted to recognize two personnel decisions, and we already heard about one, welcoming new assistant principal, board just approved for Howler Middle School, Cindy Christopherson. So welcome her. And also the new assistant principal for Pioneer, Kelly Krager. She'll start at Pioneer, and Cindy will be here right tonight. They could not be here at this meeting, but if they watch this on Zoom, we welcome you and congratulations on joining our team.
Thank you. And then the next part of our meeting is our new business portion of our meeting. And that starts with our report of our donations approved by our superintendent in July.
So in July, I approved 2 donations. One was from Pioneer PTSA for $4,875, just under the $5,000, to Pioneer Elementary for teacher enrichment grants. That's a good thing. And then the second is Rivera family donated a gate trainer valued at about $2,650 for the special education department for future students as needed. So very
Gait is
specialized.
spelled.
Gait, GAIT, so gait, like as if you're walking, not like the gate on a fence, right?
Okay.
So generosity continues, and we appreciate all donations, and these show the heart of our community.
Thank you. It is wonderful. Next up is our financial highlights of our current budget. We would like to welcome up Tina Zutenhorst, our Executive Director of Financial Services. Good evening.
Good evening. So I'm excited to share financial highlights of the current budget as of the month of May. So here we are. We've closed out the month of May. There's a detailed report in the consent agenda that has a lot of information about the month of May and budget status as of May, and also in our enrollment reporting on the consent agenda. So here we'll talk about some of the highlights. And our start with the positive, always remain very grateful for the community support that we experience in Arlington in the form of the support of our school levies. So that's a very, very important component. Our special education safety net funds, that is newly added to this list to share. I mean, we've been talking about it, but we know as we get closer and closer into the summer, it firms up what we're really going to receive in our safety net special education for high cost, certain high cost in the special education area, $1.8 million worth of revenue. So that is probably one of the highest we've ever received in my history here in the district. Another highlight that is new and is great for our financial situation at this time, state forest funds. We have received to date $670,000 of state forest funds. These are not funds that we were expecting to receive. These are not funds that we can reasonably rely on from year to year as to how much we might get and the timing with which we might receive it. So having these funds come to us in a year where we've been greatly impacted by having less enrollment than we planned, this is helping to offset some of those negative impacts on our financial position for this year. Our K-3 and physical, social, emotional support ratios, always want to mention that that takes strong planning and financial management and staffing management, and that our district has maneuvered these fairly new requirements well, and we are not having to have a penalty to our funding because we are meeting these ratios. Next, fund balance and our OSPI financial indicator scores, they improved coming into 25-26. So that was a good foundation for 25-26. And we're anticipating growth in ending fund balance for 25-26. We have finished out our state audit for the fiscal year, the 24-25 fiscal year. So it's always great to have that completed, and we have a clean audit opinion for our financial. I'll also talk a little bit more about there's pros and cons sometimes when we have our state audit. So I'll talk a little bit more about the other side of that is not as positive, but it is still a positive on my list as a positive.
Being back on that, the safety net is a positive, but also it is reimbursement for money that we have already spent.
That's correct.
Like it's an additional one.
It's not new money that we're able to spend. It is a reimbursement for funds we've already expended. And it's money that we've been spending all year long. So it is not going to be received until August. So it's another negative impact to our cash flow, that the money is not funds that we can have in our pocket to spend until we get reimbursed in August. So yeah, thank you. Good point. So our challenges, we keep reminding ourselves that in the context of our challenges, we take a look statewide as well, because we are not operating in our own microcosm. we are part of a bigger system, a statewide system with funding from the state. And there are some indicators out there that there's some tools that OSPI has developed. There are some tools that the state auditor's office has developed. And they look at various numbers in the finances and utilize those to come up with kind of grades or weighted scores. And OSPI's tool, there are 12 districts that were in the concerning area. And for the state auditors, there's 78% of school districts have concerning indicators that are showing in that tool. That's also something that we talked about with the auditors recently. And they were also reinforcing that, yep, these are the numbers that we're seeing district-wide. So to me, that is, and as been stated by others, this is an indicator of a flaw in the whole system for how schools are being funded. We made budget reductions for 23-24 and 24-25, 2 years standing. So that is challenging for everyone within the system. It's painful. It's what we've had to do. There's been a lot of rough decisions that we've had to make, but we're forging on. We have future expenditure needs that we haven't even begun to be able to take on yet. And yet it's looming on the horizon. Technology needs, learning curriculum needs. And so we'll be having more conversations about that for future. But it's a challenge for how we're going to meet those needs. Our enrollment reality for 25-26, we have 104 less students, full-time equivalent, than we budgeted for. So as we finish out the year, June, and it's an average that they take for the whole year to get to our average final full-time equivalent of enrollment compared to what we planned, 104 less students. So that's about a $1.3 to $1.4 million impact to our funds. And we have done interfund loans for cash balance during our low points. We'll talk a little bit more about that because we've gone all year without needing to have an interfund loan. We prepared for it in the event that it would be necessary, and we came this close to not needing it. We actually, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But first we'll go look at our fund balance trend because we're still in the month of May for closeout. And this is what I present to you. Our fund balance for May has, following the trend as it typically does in May, a little bit of a downward trend because it is a smaller apportionment month. They don't provide us our full amount of our apportionment in May, and then especially in June, it's another short apportionment month. And that's a big reason why our cash flow and fund balance dips down in June drastically. And then it goes back up in July and August as they make up for what they shorted districts in the previous months. And this is all according to plan. It's not an unusual thing. This is dictated out that this is the schedule that they pay under. But nonetheless, it is difficult to keep up with. It forces school districts to work to carry a larger fund balance than we might otherwise be required to have. So that interfund loan, we made arrangements for that back in January to make sure that we were all in the clear, and we haven't had to utilize it until June. The low point would be June, but it's much, much less than what we thought we were going to need to access. Only $185,000 of a loan from our capital projects fund. And we'll be able to repay that before the fiscal year is up. So that's the status on interfund loans. And what's next? Well, we're talking already about next year. We have 1 foot in 1 year and 1 foot in the new year that we're planning towards. And we're continuing to communicate about reductions, about the need to contain costs, about the need to always be looking for what is another area that we can help ourselves in, even though it might be a really bad idea. We're having to take those on. So, questions?
So what is our date again? Is it July something when we wrap up this fiscal year?
August 31st is.
Oh, it is
the fiscal
August.
year in close, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have a meeting in September and then you give us the final assessment of the.
In
25.
October is when so books close August 31st,
Okay,
but there's a 2-month open period where we're still accruing and recording all of the entries that may still be coming because we don't have everything on August 31st. Invoices are still coming, revenues are being accrued. And so there's all those entries that have to be done by October 25, and then we'll compile for board consumption a final year-end report in November is when that comes. And then we'll catch up September and October at that time too.
awesome, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay, hearing nothing about, any questions about that topic, we can move to the next topic. So you can just stay right there and tell us about our 26-27 budget draft.
Yes. Very closely related is our next year's budget. So we're ready to share a draft. And this is a presentation that gives summary information. There is a draft attached to our board reports. It's a very detailed report, 200 some pages, and this is in the format that the state requires all school districts to budget in. Very prescribed as far as exactly how everything is coded and presented. So that is available for anyone who wants to dive in and look at it. It has comparative information as well. So, but before I get into that, I just will draw ourselves back. I'm always talking about numbers, 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 but I know the board is, and that I also never forget that it's not numbers really that we're talking about. It's people and a very important mission, and that we have some things built into our policies and procedures about vision aligned budgeting, about aligns with our mission and our values. And so reiterating that the strategic plan goal about resource stewardship and our primary mission, educate, prepare, and inspire students to graduate and seek their full potential as lifelong learners. And that here's more of the detail underlying that goal. And values that guide budget decisions. We've looked at this often over the years, over the months, and continue to put it before ourselves because there's a lot there. And it's really hard to do all of those things. And yet we will continue to try, and we will continue to remember that these need to be accounted for and not neglected. The required budget format, the F-195 is what it's called. And it's the reporting structure required by the state, like I was saying. There's 5 major funds that are in there. The main one is the general operating fund. That is where all of the day-to-day expenditures of the district, revenues of the district are accounted for. We have other funds as well, but our primary focus that I'll describe for you today is the general fund. Here's a little information about the other funds too, our Associated Student Body Fund, and a brief descriptor of what those funds do and what they're for. And they are legally defined as well. The Debt Service Fund, the Capital Projects Fund, and the Transportation Vehicle Fund. So let's talk about our general fund operating budget. Here's a broad grand summary, and it compares budget to budget. And you can see that for general fund, that we are estimating at this juncture that we're going to start the 26-27 year with about 3.5 million in fund balance. That is an increase over what we started with in 25-26. And yet, with all of the work that we've done with reducing and careful planning. Our ending fund balance with the amount of revenues and expenditures that we anticipate for next year, it still would be in a decline. Our expenditures are about, I'll skip to this slide. Expenditures exceed revenues by about 582,000. So that's our first look. I'm not anticipating that we're gonna have a lot different numbers from that when we come in August with the final that we would be proposing for adoption to the board and have a budget hearing on. And yet I'm still continuing to parse through those numbers and really analyze if there's any costs in there that can be removed. But back to the summary, talk a little bit more about that. You can see that we're budgeting to receive only about 647,000 more in revenues than we were budgeting last year. But our expenditures are still at an increase, and largely that's due to salaries and benefits and other things too. We'll talk more about that. There is a provision in the board budget that shows the staff counts. So you can see a comparative, what was in the budget last year for 25-26, for the year that we're living in now, compared to what we're planning to have for 26-27. And you can see that that's 16 less in certificated employees and 7 less in classified employees. So there's been some definite work that has been done there. And also with our lesser enrollment, which is the next category that you can see comparative on. And this, you can see that for the budget for 25-26, we had total enrollment planned 5,543. Our actual that we've ended the year for 25-26 is 5,427. So the budget that we planned for the board adopted enrollment for 26-27 is 5,338. That is 89 student FTE less than we had for 25-26. And so that is being a conservative measure. It's also in alignment with Flow Analytics, the demographers that worked with us. And this was put in place earlier in the year. But with that, I'll still make a point that it's 205 less student enrollment from our previous budgeted enrollment. So that is a significant driver in all of the planning that we do for 26-27. So again, estimated beginning fund balance for next year, we think we're going to start with 3.5. It could be more, but I'm being conservative at this juncture. And I'll adjust as we get closer to the end of the year. I will make adjustments in the final as we deem appropriate. And estimated ending fund balance then would be 2.9. Of course, if we come in with a higher ending fund balance, beginning fund balance, we will have a higher ending fund balance. And we already talked about how the expenditures exceed revenues. And we'll continue to look for reductions, and spending is to be very constrained. And interfund loans, potential need is not eliminated. I'm not willing to take that off of the table as far as a potential need yet, even though it feels like we may be getting closer to, for next year, not needing to have one, since we have gotten almost the whole way through this fiscal year at the fund balance that we've had and not needed an interfund loan. So we're on the cusp, but we still need to grow that fund balance, which is still going to be for next year looking better. But I'll tell you more in the future about future forecasts, which means our work is we're going to be hit with another wave of, it's not going upwards, there's more work to do, we need to do to reduce. So general fund levy at this time for the 2027 levy will be 14.1 million. And our capital fund levy will be 6.6 million. That's as the community approved. That's voter approved. And then here's a pie chart of our budgeted revenues for next year. So here's the big three. The state is the biggest funding source, 79% of district programs funded by state dollars. And local taxes are next, 13%. And then the next biggest is between federal dollars and all the other little miscellaneous little things that are local, non-tax type funds that come to us. But those are our main funding sources, the big three: state, local taxes, and federal dollars. Those percentages have really not changed much in their makeup. And then here's the picture of that in dollars. So the other is a picture chart, and here's the figure in dollars. And you can see the main categories that the state requires us to budget under for revenues. And all of those have various subcategories within them. And you can see that for local non-tax, the reason that shows a little bit of a decrease is there's a little bit of a category within there that's been reclassified down to other revenues. So we're just following what the state requires us to do for that. And that's why that is there. State general is that decreases because we have less enrollment. So that's the biggest driver there. Meanwhile, state special purpose is showing an increase because the state legislature has done some to help the special education funding. They have increased the model somewhat there, and our population of students with special needs, while our main population may be decreasing, our special education student needs are not necessarily decreasing at that rate. So that's the difference there. And federal special purpose, there's just a few things that make up that increase. We would say in general, though, that our federal funding is pretty flat. It's really not keeping up with the costs that are growing within those programs. And yet we're always challenged to stay within the microcosm that those federal grant programs, they have to be remained within.
Question, Gina. You see, do you have any concern from the federal level that would get any smaller than 4%?
As far as the makeup of the total?
From the federal that they would.
It definitely doesn't have the same flavor of concern that we had a few years in the last round of budgeting. But flat is still really flat.
Because you're still not
It's
keeping pace with
keeping up,
inflation.
So it still very much squeezes the services that are provided in there, and probably means that there's a little bit less time available for the staff that are doing that work. Because it has to remain within the boundaries.
Has the federal government ever kept pace with, has that money ever kept pace with inflation? Have they done allowances to make up for that difference? Or is that
I would
kind of typical?
say that it has changed depending on what grants you have. So over the course of the years, I would say it hasn't really changed that much. It's probably been between 3% and 4%. It got greater during the years of the ESSER funding.
Right.
The federal component as a percentage of the whole made up a greater component, shoring up many governments across the nation. So. And other revenues. Okay, yeah, so I think that was all I had to really share about the revenues. If you have questions about that, we can come back. And here we are, same kind of pie chart picture presentation of our expenditures. And this is by program. And so you can see the various ways that the state requires school districts to account for their expenditures by program, whereas it's regular instruction, special education instruction, career and technical programs, various compensatory education, which is like Title and Lab, and some of our little federal grant programs that are within there. And other instructional programs is highly capable summer school would be in there, but we're not having summer school next year. And other miscellaneous, lots of little things. And then support services is the child and nutrition services program in its entirety, the transportation services program in its entirety, and then all of the other parts of what would make up a business or, you know, like human resources, finance, all of the things that make that aren't necessarily classroom related. So custodial, maintenance, grounds, and things like that. Hope I didn't mention them all, but there's a lot that goes in there. And so you can see that regular instruction is the biggest part of that pie. Special education is one of the next biggest as far as instructional programs go. The next is lots of various little pie slivers that are more instructional type programs as well. And then support services makes up a pretty significant component of the whole. And here is the expenditures represented in the numbers. So we can take a peek there, how that is represented, budget over budget, comparative. And the other instructional programs, that decrease is because we're not doing summer school. And also a realignment of some programs to what the actual expenditures really are. It's not necessarily a reduction so much as it is an alignment to closer to what we would actually be spending based on history. And something else to point out, the support services, that's a large increase. Primarily, that is a result of the insurance premiums that are being passed on to school districts in Washington State. Pretty phenomenal outlier in the insurance world nationwide as to how that's happening for school districts. Our premium increased by $530,000 over last year, and that was on the heels of already a $300,000 increase for our insurance premium. That's not something that is because of something that our district is doing or did, nor is it necessarily what our neighbors did, but it is something that is we don't have control of.
So we're all getting hit with.
The other thing I'll mention is diesel and gas. So I talked about how the transportation department is within the support services area. Diesel and gas, those are very high cost items that have gone up astronomically. And so that's part of that increase. In addition, our costs for transporting special passenger needs that aren't just on our regular yellow buses to from. We have important obligations to meet for various of our student population. And we don't necessarily have enough bus drivers or vehicles to transport them. And we are contracting those services out with driving companies that do that for their business. And that has continued to increase as well. So those are some of the main bigs that are going to make up that support services increase in budget. Is there any questions about this format of look? So I have another way that we have cut the puzzle up to show you next.
When we need to contract out with the drivers, does that fall under safety net at all?
It does not. It does not for what we're doing. No, it's from transportation that is required to be reported under transportation. Now, there are some grants that might get a component charged to them to help offset the cost, but it's by no means the whole amount. Yeah. And here's another look at the same number. So here's that bottom line total, 111 million. Same total, 111 million. But this is a different way of looking at it, another state defined way of coding things. They compartmental it out by certificated salaries, which is employees who are certificated, hold a certificate for teaching or held a certificate for teaching. And classified salaries are pretty much everybody else. Like I'm not a certificated staff person. I held a certificate. It's not as a CPA license, but it's not a teaching certificate. So I'm a classified staff person. So that's the state differentiates that. Employee benefits, all in one category. That's payroll taxes, retirement, health benefits, social security, Medicare, workers' compensation, paid family medical leave, taxes, all of that is in there. Supplies and materials, 5.2 million. And the fact that that shows a slight decrease is evidence of the work that has been happening to contain costs as much as possible. But when you look at the purchase services, that's where our insurance would be reported under. It's a service. It's not a tangible good. It's a piece of paper. That shows a $546,000 increase in purchase services. So there's definitely some offsetting things that have been done within our district to contain costs that we're only showing $546,000 of cost increase in purchase services with all the things going on. We're offsetting some of our increased costs. Travel, slight increase, capital outlays, a slight decrease. And that's by object code expenditures.
And Gina, I would say travel, I'm guessing it's an increase, but the cost of doing that, what we typically do in travel has gone up.
Mileage reimbursement.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm surprised that it hasn't gone up again because the IRS sets the rate. But travel, also some of that is paid for by grants. Some of that is required training that we have to do. So I think we're just looking at historical costs and also aligning our budget then to what have we typically needed adjusted. This is a required disclosure around material supplies and other costs that the state legislature asked years ago that they want this presented to the board. What is the state allocation for material supplies and other costs, and what are we budgeting just in these categories to spend in material supplies and other costs? And basically it just further illustrates that what we're budgeting to spend in material supplies and other costs is greater than what the state provides in their allocation. And again, the insurance costs is definitely something they are not keeping up with their funding. And that's all I have for you today on the general fund. So if you have questions, I can pause now and hear those questions. Otherwise, I'll go into our other funds and I'll stay at pretty high level with these funds. So our Associated Student Body Fund, basically what all you need to really see is the context of the size of what our ASB fund is looking like compared to our general fund, 111 million. And here's our ASB, about 800,000 for a starting fund balance, about 1.4 to 1.5 million in revenues and expenditures. And it's primarily driven by the student activities, athletics, although our general fund operating budget does also support the athletics and the activities. So the ASB is not the only funding for that. The revenues are from student body fees, activity gates, receipts, fundraising, and donations. And a really critical part about ASB is that students are involved in the government and the decisions around how the funds are spent. And so their student approval is required for the use of ASB funds. And highly detailed at the high school. So a little bit less so at the middle school. But questions you might have about that, I would have to go and ask for the high school people that are more intimately involved with it. Our debt service fund, we are continuing to service the debt on the buses that we have a debt for. So that's the in and the out that happens in that debt service fund. Our transportation vehicle fund has funds that it puts into the debt service fund because it's required to be done that way. And then the debt service fund pays the principal and interest. So it's all of the principal and interest payments are accounted for out of the debt service fund. And if we were to ever issue bonds again or have refunding bonds, there are some funds available in the debt service fund that would help offset some of that. Capital Projects Fund, this is, you see, building envelope project improvements, capital levy. We have lots of things that were identified in the capital levy as projects, and we continue to march through those and get those done. Here's the summary of the budget for next year for the Capital Projects Fund. Primary sources of revenue coming in there, capital levy taxes, about $6 million. But we also have that we're planning for, budgeting for the Washington State Department of Commerce grant, about $4 million there. So the expenditures, we're budgeting the capacity to make sure we have capacity budgeted in advance in our capital fund to account for if we were to spend all of the levy money and almost all of the commerce grant. If we receive it, we won't spend that money if we don't have that. But it's a reimbursement basis too. So the projects as described in capital levy or the grant primary for next year's continuing to finish on the Arlington High School roof or do more of the Arlington High School roof. And Heller Middle School building envelope improvements, post middle school campus traffic safety. And then there's microgrid visibility and construction that would be with the commerce funds. Transportation vehicle fund, the budgeting in this fund also has to do with making sure we have budgeted capacity because we have funds in that transportation vehicle fund. And so we continue to purchase couple a year, as sometimes we'll go a year without purchasing a bus. And they're also very long delivery schedules. So we could have ordered one way months ago and may not receive it until August, September. But we always want to make sure we have capacity budgeted there, especially if there happens to be an accident or something with the bus where one of the buses gets totaled and we need to purchase a new bus. We would get insurance proceeds, great. But if we didn't budget capacity, we would have to come and get an extension to our budget to ask again to spend that. Okay, so that's the transportation vehicle fund. And that's all I have to report on for the numbers within the draft budget for July. And the next is just a quick process reminder of what's next in the process. August 10 board meeting, have a public hearing, budget hearing. And then I'll present again, very similar to what I've shared today, but as it sinks in further and you have questions, we can continue to answer those. And has to be adopted by August 31st. That's written into the law. And it goes to the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, and they monitor and do their oversight processes of that. So, and that's it.
It's very thorough. Does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nicely explained. And next up is our annual McKinney-Vento report. And we're gonna welcome Brian Long, our Director of College and Career Readiness.
We can do this different because you guys have all seen this like a million times. It's not anything magical. Do you guys have any questions? Like, once it gets up here. Because OSPI hasn't even updated this page, but I do want you to know that like if the public looks for our information, this is what they'll see for us. It's actually not that far off. We're at 205 at the end of the year this year, which is a little bit down, but not really. It's just about the same. We usually have several drop off at the end of the year. just in general, is they find stability and then we don't get the information that the newly unstable students are on our system because people just don't think to tell us at that point. But this is our specific information, but it also puts it up against everyone else as well. So, and this all comes directly from OSPI, this bit does. And it hasn't been updated since 2022, 2023. But I can go over any of this again, but I know you've all seen this like a million times, literally from me. But the biggest thing is that fixed, adequate, regular nighttime housing. That is the fundamental rule that we use with every single person. If they meet any of those criteria, we qualify them. We qualify them immediately. Nobody has to fill out any paperwork except us. And so if we even get a hint that this is happening, we immediately do an investigation and we figure out exactly what's going on. We get all the lovely little details. And so I have a new assistant, Letitia's now my assistant. So she'll be trained in a couple months specifically on how to deal with this. And I think it's probably pretty interesting how we deal with it because there is an emotional component, a pretty heavy emotional component to this. We separate our duties and Letitia will be taught how to do this. She deals with the information and gets me the information, but I make the decision. So she doesn't have to feel responsible. But the reality is the decision that I make, I don't actually know the kids. I make the decision entirely because of their circumstance. It doesn't matter if the kid is 5 or the kid is 15. It is whether it meets the technical definition as defined by the federal government. And then I make the decision. If it's not an obvious situation where Letitia can make the decision herself, but that little bit of separation gives her a little bit of emotional relief because she's like, I didn't make the decision to not let this family who is in full hardship, but does not meet the qualification. And I don't actually know who it is. I know I'm doing it, but it's also my job. I get paid what I get paid to be able to deal with that. So I'm okay with it. But our big thing is the vast majority of our Mental kids are living with another family member that can kick them out at any point. It's family, friends, grandma is a lot. Grandma's probably 50% of the living with somebody else. But technically, grandma doesn't have any legal rights to tell the kid what to do, and or the grandma doesn't have to actually take care of that kid and can kick them out at any point. Because of that little tiny nuance, they qualify. So in our very simple process is once we find out about it, we just have to know a name. It's kind of amazing how often we get information from people and they tell us the whole circumstance, never tell us the name. And all we write back is, how about a name? Because the reality is no matter what they say, either the counselor or Shannon or I have to do the investigation to get the actual details, the concrete details, so that we can make an educated decision on this. Again, nobody has to fill out any paperwork except us, which is fine. We fill out the paperwork. And then we complete, one of the first ways is we get the housing questionnaire, but they don't have to fill it out. It's just convenient and a nice clearer. And then most of them come through emails. Somebody just says, you looked at this kid. And the part that's kind of frustrating is when we look into the kid, that person has to 100% assume we did our job. Because we don't come back and be like, yep, the kid's totally qualified. Nope. Nope. You don't need to know that. Doesn't matter. We just need the name. And then we do our job and you have to trust that we did our job. And we do. And we always do it in less than 24 hours. That is super crazy important to me that it happens within 24 hours, not only because it is a requirement, but these kids need the support that they can get as fast as possible. It's super interesting that, especially with the high school kids and any of our secondary kids, a lot of the system has failed them. A lot of the people who are supposed to have succeeded for them and had been there for them, they're just not. And so the faster we can do this, maybe they'll learn that this system and these people aren't going to be that. And maybe they'll stay. So it makes sense. And then once they're qualified by Letitia or I, they're that for the rest of their existence, quite frankly, until we learn otherwise. It's not even until the end of the year anymore. It's now forever. And as soon as we find out that they have stable housing, we do the transition between one school year to the next. We tell them that they no longer qualify. And we send a letter home, we send an email home, and we try to call. We do all three for every single one of them. Super time consuming. So we got all kinds of documents. Those are all the formal documents that we use. This last one, the transportation one, is probably the most valuable because communicating specifically to charity exactly where we need and when we need and who needs transportation is super important because it's a combination between whatever the sending school district is and us. And they both have to know, and both transportation departments have to know. And it just makes sure that there's no suggestion. So the others are just the state forms. We fill them out in almost every case and just keep them for records purposes. But our biggest resource is transportation, and transportation pays for it. Like it doesn't come out of McKinney-Vento because McKinney-Vento Title I Part A, it would take like 1 trip, 2 trips, and that thing would be gone. There isn't much in that fund. So, and it probably hits into the hundreds of thousands of dollars of costs of transportation for kiddos back and forth. And we're only talking not even 50 kids because it's one school bus transporting maybe 2 or 3 kids. And one has to go to Lakewood, one has to go to Everett, one might have to go to Concrete. That one's always really expensive. And it's going back and forth. And that's only our half of the cost. The other half of the cost is put up on the other school. So it is expensive to say the least. We provide clothes, which we actually just send them to Kids Closet and they can get all the clothes they want. Food, we connect them with the food bank and they can get all the food they want. When we hand them a name, they can go to the food bank anytime and get whatever they need whenever they want. But we also do the Meals Till Monday program so that every McKinney-Vento kid, if they want to be on the list, in fact, anyone can do this. It doesn't matter if they're McKinney-Vento. They'll get less than 3 pounds of food so they can put it in their backpack for the whole weekend, every single weekend. That comes every single week like clockwork after the first week of school once we have a list of names. And anyone can be added at any point for any reason. We don't ask. And the food bank takes care of it. All of the counseling, medical, dental, visual referrals, all that fun stuff is handled through our student support advocates. And it primarily almost always happens at the high school. Little guys have a tendency to be taken care of our grade schools by their parents, but when they get into the high school, the parents kind of give up. You know what we see in these kiddos. And Travis steps in the case of the high school, in most cases, in both high schools, and tries to get them that coverage. Got that whole lead a horse to water concept happening in a lot of cases because he literally can physically put them in a car and take them there, but they have to actually get out of the car and go in, which can be very, very scary. And then we make sure that all of their extracurricular and intercurricular activities are either waived, which I know Gina doesn't like that word, or covered. We'll just say covered. How is that? Is that better? Covered? Covered. Because we can't charge them. They cannot incur a fee, and we just keep track of that. So actual cost of that at both high schools probably doesn't even get into the $3,000 range. Because most of the fees are associated with costs that would happen because they participate in a sport, which is not an actualized fee necessary cost. It's something we give to help pay for the whole group. So when it comes right down to it, usually is things that we end up having to buy, like uniforms. So, and that comes out of Title I Part A. And Carl really takes care of that. I just say, hey, Carl, we need money. So these are just more of the forms that we do. Every student who is a McKinney-Vento qualifies for FAFSA, like automatically, and it is a shockingly good deal. Every kid who is qualified for McKinney-Vento should do this right now and take it on, and basically their entire 4 years is paid for if they want to go to a 4-year university, 2-year trade school, whatever, it's paid for. That signature plus this form, and it is all gone. Just like that. And we only have 4 or 5 kids maybe a year do it.
Why do you think so few?
Because the unbelievable intimidated process of becoming an actual college student is more than most of these kids can handle. The entire process is so overwhelming, and they have literally no support at home in most cases. Lisa and Travis do an incredible job, but just there's a lead a horse to water concept that you can only get so far before they have to do their part. And a lot of them academically are so far behind It would not be a service to actually send them to a 4-year or 2-year school because they academically aren't ready. They just aren't ready. We're barely getting them across the line to graduate, let alone the rigors of 2-year or 4-year school. Trade schools are much more possible just simply because we can do more targeted learning on them and make them more likely to succeed. So, again, that would cover it, but it's hard to get them to listen. And then during the holidays, they can get all kinds of free stuff during the holidays. Lots of people want to help them out, which is good. There we go. Okay, numbers, lots and lots and lots of graphs, huge amounts of graphs. As we know, Arlington High School should have the most, but it actually should be higher than that. Statistically, it should be quite higher than that, but they're much, much better at hiding when they get to the high school level. They know not to communicate certain things. So, and you can see the population variations between like Post and Heller. This is just the elementaries, and again, you can just see the population differences in the different elementaries. By grade level, you can just see literally as parents and guardians give up. It's pretty much how I see it. So, and you can see a huge decline for this year, which is nice, at least the 12th grade. This is just all over the number in terms of building, and again, this comes back to population. Living situation, living with another family member. A lot of the unshelters are, we just don't know. And if we don't know, we put them as unsheltered. Those are typically our unaccompanied homeless youth, where we can barely get them to come to school. And so we really struggle just getting any information whatsoever on them. By gender, it's pretty even, actually. It's not too bad, which is surprising. And then our totals, you can see we dropped from last year, but it's not a significant difference. It could just be an anomaly. So, but it's not getting worse, which that's good.
It had been going up every year.
Yeah, like poo, 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 poo. So, and that might be just the awareness so that it becomes clearer as to what's available. Because we still have lots and lots of kids and parents who are like, there's a full program for this.
Yeah, also COVID years too.
Yeah. So,
We're just aware of everything.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the whole thing. Yeah, good.
I wondered if there's any relationship to the economics of the region. I would just be curious how we rank versus Denver or Las Vegas. Yeah, I'd be
But that
curious.
data would exist. I've never looked it up. I always just looked at Washington.
Mhm.
And Snohomish County is right up there, right as the same as like King County or Thurston County. Thurston County is probably a little bit higher, but it's not hugely different throughout the state of Washington. But I haven't looked at other states. It's actually really interesting.
I'd be curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions?
Do the fundraisers that get put into booster for the high school help cover some of the extracurricular?
So one of the things that's really unpleasant about this is, let's say we look at the band trip that they took this year to New York.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the band has to take that on, period. Just like all of my CTE, CTSOs have to take on every kid. We lose about $1,000 just in uniforms for ROTC a year,
Mhm.
and that's only 2 uniforms. Because they don't come back, and so we have to replace them. So it's where that cost is usually put, is towards boosters, either reimburses the ASB or the ASBs themselves take care of it. Organizations.
Mike Jane.
Yeah. It's not a waiver.
Thank you for taking care of our kids.
Yeah. Well, let's be clear, Shannon does most of it. I just say yes or no. So give Shannon all the credit. Cool.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Next up is our integrating AI into Washington CTE frameworks. And we'd like to welcome Rob Hollis, our CTE instructor and CTE director intern for Arlington High School. And he gave you all a handout. Welcome, Rob. We're so excited to hear from you.
Thank you. So like you're saying, this comes from the CTE Director Prep Program. They want to make sure if anybody wants to go and become a CTE director, they know basically the ins and outs of how the finances work. You don't want to go into a fiscally insolvent program, or if you do, you want to know how do you recover it once you get there. One of the big things that they've asked us to do, and I'll preface this before we go into the slides, they want this to go out to all CTE directors Washington-wide. This is not an indication of Arlington specifically. This is an indication of if we were to put AI out into our CTE frameworks, how could it work at multiple different venues, multiple different districts? So more of a recipe than a specific accounting would be the right way to put that. I'm supposed to be limited to 10 minutes. I'll be doing this presentation on August 2nd at the CTE conference this summer. Along with there's 30 other CTE director prep people that have their own pieces. Of all of them, I was the only one that went into AI. Everybody else was going into how do we make a handbook for a new CTE director? How do you spin up a new program, which are all important things. The one thing that we heard through all of the conferences this year is employers in our region are simply discounting and discarding any employee applications that come in that don't have AI foundational knowledge. If you don't know how to write a prompt in AI and the next guy does, I don't even look at you. I throw you away and I pick up the guy that does, and then I talk about which of these people do I want to value to go ahead and make the hire. What that means is that as a preparatory institution at high school, if we aren't teaching it, we're basically disqualifying our own students. So how do we get to the point that we can teach AI in a way that makes sense, but doesn't open us up to a lot of risk that, as you know, some of the AIs are pretty wild, wild west. All right, so AI is transforming the industry. Like I said, our employers are requiring it at this point. What we find in our CTE frameworks is we have a requirement to update those frameworks at least once every so many years. You're supposed to update them every year, but you have to get formal approval every time that your particular service area comes up. So one year we might do ag, the next year we might do manufacturing. It's very specific as to what has to happen, but realistically, everybody should be doing this every single year. If you're not, you might be disserving your students for 3 or 4 years waiting for you to play catch up. You don't want that. The goal here is we need an equitable way to get the policy and the execution to line up. If you don't do that, you can write all of the great frameworks you want. You can put all the language in there. And if you come down to it and find out, oh, our district we're a Google district, and I write all of my stuff about Microsoft and all the wonderful things that Copilot does, I just shot myself in the foot, and I made it hard for me to teach. I've made it hard for our AI or our IT folks to support it. And that is a disservice to the students as well. So this is more about how do you have that conversation and bring all of those heads together before you go off and make a decision on your own. The goals for this project is we want to develop AI framework language. Great to develop the language. Again, the language isn't necessarily the important thing. That language reflects what everybody's thinking is the important side of it. We want to align with OSPI standards because, of course, CTE is paid based on did we hit all of the markers that OSPI has asked us to do. And if the framework says you're going to teach A, B, and C, and you go off and teach a million other things, that's not what you're paid for. You have to teach what's in the framework. So can we put things into the framework that let students introduce AI into the things they would have been doing in that industry anyway? Support district adoption. This goes down that same piece before. If I go off on my own and write a wonderful policy and the board knows nothing about it and our IT folks are like, we haven't budgeted for that, again, it's kind of for naught. And you don't want to waste people's time because ultimately wasting time is a disservice to the students. If you can keep everybody in line and working forward at the same time, you're good. All right, stakeholder collaboration. The people that we had as part of this project were other CTE director prep folks, other IT directors across the state. We went and we talked with some different districts. We also talked with other states to see how are the different states looking at it. We do have a governor and we do have an OSPI secretary that have their own opinions that aren't necessarily in line with all the other states. So we have to make sure that what we do lines up with that so that it doesn't get shut down for the same reasons. The CTE instructors, they're the ones that are going to be on the ground actually teaching these things. And if they don't know how to operate the AI on a fundamental level, they're not going to be able to teach the kids how to do it. The biggest complaint that we saw across our shareholders was that you have kind of two camps. You've got one camp that says, let's get AI, let's put it in there, make all the kids do it, make them great. It's awesome. You have the other camp that says, I don't know what risk this poses to me. And if I let the kids do this thing on name your favorite AI, and that kid goes and builds something they shouldn't build or hurts other people or finds out how to hurt themselves, now you're part of that equation and you don't want that. So how can you give the kids the tools of AI and still have some of those safeguards so that as they're learning, you can train them on what not to do? You also have some flags in there. There's some laws that are coming into play that basically say, if you put something out to DeepSeek, basically everything you just typed went to China and they know everything about what you just entered. And if you happen to enter a social security number, a birth date, or any personal identifiable information about that kid, you've just broken the law and kind of sacrificed that kid to the data wolves that are out there. Picking an AI then becomes a piece of which AIs wall off themselves so that they don't sell that information out. So that if a kid does put information in there that you don't want out in the world, even if the kid puts it in, it's still secure. So that's some of what we worked with this year. Other industry partners out there, as you know, a couple months back, we started a relationship with Magic School. They are an AI vendor. They're kind of a weird AI vendor. They will go out and grab pieces from some of the different AI models, but then they put their guardrails on it. The nice part about that is you know what's contained. The bad part about that is there's a lot of functionality that you might get somewhere else that you won't get here. And so the question then becomes, don't fight about not necessarily having functionality, but how do I make sure the kid knows how to use the tool? If you show him how to use a basic calculator in high school and he gets a scientific calculator wherever he goes to work, the principles are the same. You've taught him how to use the device. Now that he's got a bigger, better device, they should be able to work bigger and better versus, oh my gosh, they never let us have this at school. OSPI feedback. Everything that we're putting together, we're sending up to OSPI and getting their ideas, because if you put something into a framework, send it to OSPI and they are not on board with it, you've just lost that framework. You need to start back over, redo it again, possibly strip out all the work that you've done. So some of what we're doing is finding out from OSPI, what guidance would you like to see as we're developing these different pieces? Finally, you want an approved AI solution provider list. Sometimes it's a blacklist of who not to use. Sometimes it's a whitelist of who we like. Sometimes it's a little bit of a merge in between. This year, we're going to be doing at least Magic School. There might be some components of some of the other AIs that are incorporated as well, but it'll depend on how this whole thing evolves. District AI policy procedure language development. This is saying that as we go to develop a policy, we want to make that policy flexible enough that it allows us to pick and possibly unpick a vendor that we like or finally find out we don't like. How do we get the different pieces out to our teachers to let them know these are the things we'd like you to focus on? I want to focus on building prompts. I don't want to focus on how do I write a sophomore paper that looks like it was written by a human so it'll get past the teacher's eyes. How do I use AI to actually bounce back and forth ideas so I can refine my own ideas to make them better than they would have been otherwise? The safe and secure instructional use, again, a kid does something dumb, you want to have some pieces on there. One of the things that Magic School talks about is if a kid makes a self-harm statement, admin gets a little blip about that kiddo. If a kid asks how to do something that's part of a class, if they're in a sex ed class and they say one of the different gender pieces of anatomy, it doesn't automatically send them to the principal. They ask the teacher, hey, is this part of your lesson? And if so, maybe we can go ahead and say that's an okay use of AI in that particular sense. The Journal Advisory Council is an ACE. They've got some language they want you to use so that everybody stays kind of on the same page. And then any of the language that you put in there, you always want to make sure you run it by your board. If the board doesn't know what's going on, there's nothing that will derail your program quicker than a board member not knowing anything and saying, I didn't even know we were doing this. That makes them feel bad. If you want to have ownership, if you want to have that same, everybody's on the same page, you have to have that collaboration up front. So make sure the board sees that language. And then the guidelines, existing procedure. We have 2022P that's out there. I think the way that Arlington is looking at moving is we're going to take the policies we've already got and supplement them with the language that we think gives us those boundaries. If we need to do something more expansive than that as the horizon changes, we may. Magic School evaluation, we had Magic School come in. They talked to a number of different people, and I'll tell you, not all of them were teachers. We had a security guard, we had teachers, we had administrators, we had just community members. Magic School made their presentation and showed some of the tools that were in there. They have a lot of tools that might be, in my mind, their Achilles heel is they might have too many tools. But there's a number of pieces that are out there. So we got to see and taste kind of how that went before we recommended that up to be used. The teacher productivity comes down to the fact of if I can get a teacher to do what they used to do with worksheets and do it through AI, does that make the teacher faster being able to deliver that thing in hopes that they'll use the rest of the time to deliver something more? So if I've only been able to do 80% of my curriculum and now with AI, I'm able to do 90 or 100% or maybe 110 or 20, that gives the kids a lot better experience than what they would have had only getting the piecemeal spots. And then the TAC demonstration, we had a kind of a one-day demo. They let us use that for a month and a half, and then we went to make the decision to let that roll out. It's my understanding the way the demonstration went is they will have some training for everybody that can be a live training, and then there's going to be some self-service video trainings that people can adopt into. All right, framework language. This is a hot button. Everybody has different ideas of ethics. As we treat the word ethics, we need to almost replace that with the word risk. If we say, should a kid do X, Y, or Z, the question is, are we exposing our school, our budget, and our ability to provide services out to kids at risk if we do one of these things that's going to get us in trouble where we're facing a lawsuit? As we know, we're in a tight budget time. We don't need extra lawsuits taking money away from the already tight budget that's there. So making sure that if we're using AI, we cover our bases so that we're as covered as possible and teach the kids the right way to do it so that whenever they go and get a job and try to do stuff with AI, it doesn't get them fired. Those are kind of the key points of where we want to go. That means you have to have a critical evaluation. You can't say, Magic School gave us a really nice price, so we should go with them. You have to look at it by the merits of the actual program. And if Magic School does better than, again, name your different AIs, and this will be different for every single school that's out there. You have to say, what are you trying to teach? And does that product actually let you teach it without breaking any laws? Better, does it let you teach it so that your kids will be at the top or the forefront of that candidate pool when they go looking for jobs? All right, adoption strategy. The way we went about this is the first thing I did back in September, I sent an email to Matt basically saying, here's what this project is, here's what we're trying to do. Is this something that you would like to help with, be a part of? And Matt was very cordial, said, yeah, I would like to be a part of that. Matter of fact, that's kind of one of the things we're already looking at. So it made it very easy to dovetail in and be included in that conversation. The professional development, whenever we did select a tool, one of the mandates was that it has to have some PD that's available for teachers. Probably should be for the teachers, probably should be for the staff, if as much, if not more so than for the students themselves. Because again, you need to know what's out there before you use it or choose not to. And then each year we need to have continuous review. So if we use this tool for a year and everybody hates it, we need to feel free to say we hate it. If we get in there and we love it, we need to tell people, yeah, we like it. We might want to make this relationship go a little bit further. But making that something where it's okay to say what you feel and actually go out and look for the ones that normally wouldn't say anything because they're probably where your most honest opinions are at. All right, the student learning activities. This is the part that everybody kind of thought this project was going to, is how do you embed different projects that talk specifically about AI, or what I hear the most is make AI-proof assignments. We don't want AI-proof assignments. We want assignments that AI can make better, and know to the kid that it's a responsibility. You have to tell people if you're using AI, because if they see something that is not in your vocabulary list that you've been using for the last 6 months, that's pretty telling. And you know, break trust with your boss, you break trust with your teachers, that's not a good thing. We talk about the prompt engineering. How do you set up a prompt? How do you redo that prompt when it doesn't give you the answer you want? How do you fix it so it does? And then we look at bias analysis. Every AI out there written by a different group of people has different biases that are built in. I tell the story of DeepSeek versus ChatGPT, giving the students an assignment to go out and have AI write you a story about 4 high school students. ChatGPT wrote about 2 guys, 2 girls that were dating during high school. They got mad at each other. One guy tried to steal his buddy's girlfriend. Everybody split up. It was backstabbing. It was bad. The exact same words and the same prompts going to DeepSeek talks about 4 people that worked very collaboratively to make their way through high school, all the hardships they had because they were a group, they made it through. Because the cultures where those 2 different AIs were built have different stigmatisms, have different biases that are already built in, you see that play out in the responses you get from the AI. So you have to be careful when you use an AI. If I know it's got a particular bias, I need to make sure the kids can see that and even identify it. So as they're looking at it, they don't just take it and give it somebody else as if it was their idea. Career application, portfolio artifacts, what sort of things can we give a kid to build inside of AI? They can give a boss to show that, hey, I actually know how to use this. Those are going to be some of the pieces that are the most telling to your learning activities. All right, next steps. Pilot testing, we're doing that this year. Framework expansion. As we start to use our AI of choice, then we'll start to see some of those different pieces added into the frameworks as we go through that framework reevaluation process. And we're going to have to measure. We're going to have to say how many things do we think this did better and how much did it do worse, and how are some of these things not really pertinent anymore? Did we think they were when we heard AI and it's a fancy golden car, and now we find out that really it's just a calculator? All right. As far as questions, once this presentation goes wide to the other CTE directors, the scrutiny then comes down to, well, my IT group does it this way. Well, my board has this feeling. How do I navigate through that? The piece that I would put to you as a board is, as we don't currently have a formalized policy, if we go to build a policy, we want to keep in mind the policy is not meant to necessarily restrict. The policy is not meant to guarantee access to a particular thing. The policy is your approach. How do I keep from making this a risky situation for the student to learn how to do it? Questions, comments?
Thank you for your presentation. AI is something I think we're all like trying to find our comfort level with. There's a lot of scrutiny, criticism, and we see a lot of hate towards it. But the presentation, I learned some things, and I appreciated the parts where you're talking about the bias and recognizing that. And you know, I talk a lot about the dignity of risk here, and I think that, you know, their students are allowed to take that risk, and it's our responsibility to, you know, show them what those risks are. I don't know if I'm comfortable with like the way our workforce is going towards all of this, right? But I think, you know, it's fair to prepare them, so.
Thank you.
And I'm curious to see what our policy will end up looking like.
And can I ask you a quick question? I'm a first grade teacher, so I'm not really using AI in my classroom very much. I've dabbled in a few things, but what my concern is, what we need to think about is the staffing. What training? Because we have a range, and there are very few people that are fresh out of school who are at the cusp of even your level of expertise in AI. I mean, I would want to make sure that I'm getting the training I need. However, if whatever scope of teaching I'm doing in the district, and then applying that. And then, like I said, I would want that full picture, so then I can know when the students are putting, you know, the prompts in. I just don't have that knowledge right now. So for right now, I'm kind of I have an antipathy towards it because I don't know it. But I hear what you're saying, that it is a bit of the frontier, which is kind of exciting. There's risk, but I just want to make sure that the district is providing some entry point for our staff.
I think that training probably has to be different for each different level. Like you say, at first grade, you're not going to have kids that are having it write me a 5-page paper.
No.
What you might have is, what are some ways that you can use AI that doesn't become a hot button to parents or your boss, that you're still doing your job as a teacher. How are you just doing it better? Whereas you might have, like I said, you might have had a worksheet that you used to have to grade 1,000 questions on 100 different sheets.
Yeah.
Can the AI give you the metrics on that and let you go back and put the human component of the encouragement or the coaching that might need to be involved.
Right, right. Yeah, so it's a powerful tool.
And we did look, and you're right, Rob, we did look as a board at the procedure suggested revisions for 2022. And, Matt and Drake did a job of, presenting to us where can we, in what ways can students use it, can staff use it? We're still refining that. We're still refining to a spot. But also, an important aspect is to protect the data of our students. And so Matt has shared the idea of ensuring that whatever platforms that we're using, that the district owns that data so that it's not being mined, and sent who knows where, but just the
And
importance of that.
There's a couple different approaches on that Matt's aware of. One is having an on-premises where you own the servers, all the data stays here physically on our campus. The other one is where basically you rent an offsite and they sequester it legally, that's your area. You're the only one with access to it. Those are both viable options. I think the biggest thing you want to think is don't just go out there and grok something and hope it's protecting you, because it might at that point either protect you one day and not the next because they have a company change that changed it. The nice feat about the products that we're looking at is typically they've got assurances. And during the time that you're subscribed with us, this is how we will handle your data. And as long as they do that, whatever products out there is, good enough to evaluate. And if we need to change, we change. If we need to expand, we expand.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks for helping our students get ready for their future.
Thank you.
Next up is our Public Information Program report. This is presented by Gary Fable, our Director of Communications and Risk Management. Fun little edition.
Good evening, directors. So this is the annual report on the public information program. It covers two different policies. The first policy is 4001, which is the public information program. This is basically talking about two-way communication between the district and our stakeholders. Although some of the things listed here aren't necessarily two-way communication. For instance, press releases and media coverage is really one way. But when I shared the social media, kind of becomes two-way at that point, depending on what's being shared. But these are some of the different ways. The annual report, we also have school performance reports. These are annual items that are shared with families. It includes basically information about the school, links to survey results that are shared as well. OSPI report card, which kind of lists the kind of demographics of a school. And so those are annual. You'll see those as a board. You see those annually for me. But in terms of communication, so there's the report, press releases I mentioned. We do send those out. In my opinion, they're probably not quite as impactful as they once used to be, just because the media's contracted so much over the years. But we still generate those. We do get some media coverage, but again, we still have, a couple of local papers in town. They're no longer with us. So it's really the Everett Herald and periodic TV stations that come up. So kind of limited. And that's why I think social media is so much more important right now. Surveys, we just in the board workshop talked about, some of the survey results. That's also a very good way to get feedback. In addition to that, it's not listed here, but at the school level, parent teacher conferences, there are school specific surveys, there are different ways to get feedback, PTAs, things like that. The Voices opportunities, Dr. Sweeting has done those for many, many years and get great feedback from those. No swings up, but get great feedback. So, and of course, our new website, the messaging is kind of replaces that whole school messenger, the robocall type of thing. Aptitude rooms, this is very much a two-way communication tool that we're still implementing. And this year, we're doing even more of that. And the district app, a new district app. You may or may not know we've had a district app before last summer. No one ever used it, but the new one is actually being used quite a bit. So that's helpful. And then, of course, social media. For good or bad, good way to get feedback, but also share information. People use it. In our district, we monitor it, but we don't turn off comments or things like that typically, unless it's something that goes against our social media posting guidelines. So this is kind of that, two-way communication piece in policy 4001. There are a couple more pieces in this policy. I just have to share district communication cannot be used to endorse political campaigns. So check that box. That's good. And then annually, Mr. DeYoung shares discipline data with the ACE committee. Again, that's also within that policy. Any questions about policy 4001? Okay, great. I'm going to go to policy 4040, which is public records requests, which is another area that I cover, along with records retention, which is also critically important. And why records retention is important is because we follow, basically every record has a retention of how many years you keep it, and we follow that, we log it and destroy it, and you're supposed to do that per the Secretary of State's office. And the reason we do that is because if we follow our retention policy, we don't have the record anymore per our guidelines. So that's exactly what we want to do, and so we try to follow that. In terms of records requests, you can see I've shared this over the years, but certainly the number it has just skyrocketed over the past couple of years since COVID in particular. You can just see it's just more and more coming through. So the Secretary of State's office did a couple of weeks ago asked for a testimony. As a district, we did write something in just to help limit, in my opinion, some frivolous records requests that we get. Now, obviously, if like a parent or community member is asking for records, those are great. But these are more the ones outside of our state that bombard not only Arlington, but every public school district. So, but anyway, yeah, I mean, it's definitely increased a lot. And I mentioned the Next Request tracking software. Without that software, it would be almost impossible to do my job. So, but that's policy 44. It just talks about records requests, records retention. I'm just kind of giving you an overview. You could certainly drill down if you want into that policy, but that's an overview. Yes.
2026, that's the calendar year, not the school year, correct?
Yes, I do it. I do it by year because of our retention policy for records requests. It's 3 years. And so it's, you do 3 years and then I wait until that summer to purge them, log and destroy the older requests. And so for that reason, that's why it's calendar year, not fiscal year. So that's, great question.
2026 might be higher.
Oh, yeah, it'll be, yes, year to date, YTD year to date. So that's what I have as of, a week or so ago. So, and if 2025 is any indication, we'll probably go beyond that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for all your fun. Right, next up is our withdrawal prior to graduation annual report.
So this is an annual report that is asked for by policy 3123, and I want the clicker.
You want?
Oh, am I sharing? Or can you share?
I can share.
Yeah.
Do you want the clicker though?
No.
I
Can do it from. Maybe. Let's see. Let me see if I can. No, you.
But I can advance it.
Yeah, just advance it. It's fairly, it's okay. So basically, this is something that we present every year, and I'm presenting this tonight for Director Carrie Helgeson. She's not here this evening. She does oversee not only special education, but student services. So this is a piece of that. The purpose of this, reporting this to the board, is to draw attention to, we have students that we're trying to maintain them to stay in school and to graduate. And this is a report to you about what's happened this last school year compared to the previous school year about students withdrawing and potentially dropping out of school. Some of them move on to a different school, and we try to validate that. Some don't come back. So I'm going to share with you that information. So go to the next slide. And so this year we didn't have a reason code for 4 students, and these are students ages 17 to 21. So for 4 students withdrew before graduation. And last year we had 11. So we have less unknown this year than we did from last year. The total, 69 students withdrew prior to graduation or prior to graduating. Yeah, Arlington High School 15, Weston 7, Open Doors 41, and Arlington Online Program 6. And last year we had 73. So we'll talk, I'm going to show you how this number plays out and talk a little bit about Open Doors. If you go to the next slide, Matt, thank you. This just lays out at the 12th grade level at each of those grade markers from 17 to 21, where are the numbers. And you notice 18 is kind of a higher number. Here students turn to be an adult, and they might seem harder for them to continue. But our goal is to put all in front of them to make it possible for them to graduate from high school. Down below, you can see the reasons. So unknown, there weren't any unknown. If a student does not come to school after 20 days, we don't know where they're at, they just don't show up, we cannot claim them, for FTE. So we had one of those. So you can see how that lays out. The highest was transferring or moving. And so the next slide is Weston, and you can see the same pattern that when they're 18, more seem to leave at that time. But you can see we did have 2 unknowns for attendance, moving, and you can see how that lays out. The next one is online, and same for the 18, but different pattern. The next one is the Open Doors, and keep in mind that Open Doors is for students that they come into Open Doors already at risk for not graduating because they're low in credits. And so these are students that they are struggling because there's barriers in the way. And sometimes these barriers are not something we can control. There might be barriers outside of a school system. Some of them might be working full time. Some of them might be homeless, or both, all the above. They might have children. They might already have a family. So there's various reasons, but it's an appropriate title, the Open Doors. We want them to have an open door, be able to come back and be able to graduate and get a GED in some ways. But you can see the age is still between 18 and 19. The highest numbers are there. When you look at the reasons why, the non-attendance is pretty high. Maybe they had to work who knows what the question is. And so, but the one thing I really think is great here is that we had 18 students that got their GED or their diploma. So we did open the door for them, but we need to do it more. Next one, questions. What questions do you have?
I think it's great that there was less dropping out sooner than last year.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Eric, can you help me with the next
The
one?
next one is the annual review of our geographic attendance series.
So this is another annual report from policy 3130, and it's normally Brian Lewis was retired. He would do this report, and it's really very much the same as the previous report, because this shows what are the geographic areas for our schools, what areas attend our schools. So it shows, I'm going to talk about where I got this data, the feeder school pattern, the boundaries, and maybe some future thoughts. And we've talked about this already, what the future might be for enrollment. So next slide, those are just the requirements of policy 3130 that we need to annually talk about, the review of these attendance areas and things that are listed there. And that we do allow students to come into our district that are from out of ourselves, out of district. We also have students that request inter-school choice transfers or attendance. So we have that going on. The requirements factors that we consider in the developing the boundaries. So in our future, there will probably be a boundary consideration of adjustment. But part of that is where growth is happening. And what we don't want to have is a lot of disruption going on. And so the first thing listed there is a minimal disruption. We want to maintain neighborhoods, so we wouldn't want to have this side of the street go to one school and this side of the street to another. You'd want to try to maintain that togetherness of a neighborhood. We want to keep as best as possible our siblings in the same feeder pattern, same elementary that feeds into the middle school, and then adjust the class level. So right now, with our enrollment that has actually decreased a bit, we're fine, we don't need to do a boundary adjustment. But there will be in our future that possibility. We've got 84 homes that are being built just below Pioneer Elementary. And so that could either go into KP or go into Pioneer. So in the future, we could end up having a boundary adjustment, depending on our what's happening there. The next couple slides, I think, it's going to show maps, and those maps came, the maps are from what we have in the district of the boundaries for each school and the feeder areas, but Flow Analytics, you're aware that they provided us with the demographic data that we've used for our enrollment projection for next year. So feeder patterns for elementaries, KP, Eagle Creek feed into Post, Presidents and Pioneer feed into Howard, and then both of our middle schools feed into the high school, and Weston as a school of choice. And SVLC, they did a show on there where they, doesn't say, but
They don't have a boundary. It's from across the entire.
okay, they're like Weston in that they could be a choice. Okay, thank you, Carrie. And then this is just an overview of how the division, and you can see that in a minute, I'll show you the individuals, but it's not the geographic area of each school boundary is not the same. It just depends on the density. Yeah, so this is the general review. Thanks, Matt. Excellent. And this one is, can't see that, this is Eagle Creek. So you see that expanse. And this is Kent Prairie. And if based on this, that new housing project, maybe.
Off of Tweet.
Well,
No,
not that one. I'm talking about the 84, the one you're going up Highway 9 towards the high
It's
school.
on the other
right?
side.
Yeah,
Where, like behind the Higgins. Oh, yeah.
so it might be Pioneer. This is Pioneer. I don't know if it's in there. And then the next one is Presidents. It's kind of an interesting design. But keep in mind, we're trying to keep, neighborhoods together. The next one is, question.
I'm curious, how do they decide which, I understand the neighborhoods, but the neighborhoods going in that feed into, say, Cape Prairie and Eagle Creek, I just wondered how they decided, like, would it ever be entertained mixing Kent Prairie with Presidents or Pioneer and Eagle Creek?
Wasn't part of it, but I do know that one of the, like they did mention as a criteria, we mentioned in there that has to do with the class size, so I think when we get to that place at whatever time that will be, the committee, there'll be a committee, it'll have community members on it, have staff on there as well, and students. They will look at what's the class size. They'll also look, I know a big thing is about not just the neighborhoods, but what kind of road, like you wouldn't want students, they do for the high school, but you wouldn't want an elementary student that is in a walking distance to have to go across a major highway.
Yeah,
Mhm.
highway, maybe it's not,
Right.
and then like the river.
Right, so they look at safety items. So this is,
I think the new development is at
Yeah, it's in there.
it's below the green and into the orange.
yep,
It's the little red flag problem.
yeah,
Oh, there's Pioneer.
Yeah, it's right about there.
yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. The one thing is when you look at our schools, they're very, except like Weston's kind of an outlier, but they're pretty close together.
Mhm.
So, And that's.
Okay, so we don't need to change any boundaries right now,
Not right now, but.
but you'll keep us posted.
Yes, I will.
Awesome, thank you. So the next thing is our first reading of board policies 2106 program compliance and 2170 career and technical education. And we would like to welcome up our Carrie Henderson-Burke, Director of Teaching and Learning. For both of those. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here. All right, we're looking at your policies today, and of course, we'll take them one at a time, but the adjustments in each policy are really essentially the same thing. What they've been is some updated verbiage to ensure that we're not discriminating when we think about our program compliance. And so even in some cases, there are some crossouts, but the same words appear, sex and religion, but they're in a different place. They're not eliminated, they're just rearranged a little bit. So here's the section on, is this 2106 for our program compliance. So ethnicity, so there's quite a list of ways that we could potentially discriminate, but
Do you want to change the law?
And we've been doing this to several policies.
I have a question.
Oh, that's a question.
Why specifically honorably discharged veteran or military?
we have a policy to allow for veterans to get diplomas. Really, so regardless of their age, so ensuring that we're making sure that if people come to us.
Why honorably?
Oh, honor.
Well, I don't have a complete answer to that, except.
There are 4 different
There-
types of
there-
discharge.
I
And
can
so.
find out if you want. It's a good question, yeah. What are the 4 good?
Honorable, other than honorable, medical and dishonorable.
And what's interesting is the one policy that describes, like a veteran who's gone to serve and their schooling was disrupted, they could come back and get a diploma. I don't know if it says honor, I don't know. We should check that.
Should be applicable.
Medical sounds like it's cool. Hopefully I can cross-reference better than I can speak, but I'll find out.
That's
And bring
curious.
back. Yeah, it's a good question.
Any other changes down below? No. And the next one?
So this is general program compliance, the next one is CTE compliance, and so. Similar updates, more crossouts that has been changed. Boy Scouts of America, of course, there's a new name for it. Because it's not just for boys anymore, so, but there again,
I wonder something.
yes.
Where it does say honorably discharged veteran, wouldn't we also want to be maybe crossing off the honorably? So it's not just age, honorably, sex. That would be weird.
Tell me what line.
Above the first red letter, above.
Oh, where it's crossed out.
Oh, yes, honorably probably would be.
Thank you.
Also, yes.
Excellent, good catch, thank you.
The eyes are still working. I know, good job. It's my one subject. It's not even running.
Yeah.
We were in policies a lot.
I do this all day. This is my fun job.
Good job. Thank you.
I don't hear any other changes, so thank you very much, Carrie.
Thank you so much. I'll get back to you with that.
Here. And next up is our second reading and adoption of board policy 2140 comprehensive school counseling plan. And this is an action item.
Yes, and you will notice that this is aligned with the previous language that was sort of, just scroll down, thanks, Matt. It's, although there's less red, but it goes, yeah, it does.
Okay.
More just a curiosity question.
Yeah, so this is ready for board's consideration and approval.
Is there a motion to approve board policy 2140 comprehensive school counseling plan?
make a motion to approve.
I'll second. It's been moved by Director Diamond and seconded by Director Watts to approve board policy 2140. Madam Clerk.
Director Diamond,
Or
Director Kelly,
Yes.
Director Watts,
Yes.
President Levesque,
aye.
Director Young.
Policy is approved. And that brings us to our informational items. We'll start with our superintendent.
I was just gonna report out that we have some projects that are works and project at Presidents with the food services in the cold storage area. They put in new flooring and that's, I could say it's complete, and so we're gonna be checking that box as soon as it has completely completed. And then Arlington High School, the roof is, if you were to go up there, you could see that the roof is being replaced. And so we're working through that and things are moving smoothly. And the board approved tonight an amendment to the contract where we can actually get a bit more work done. So that's a good thing. And then we're wrapping up. Last year, we finalizing certain things, reports, and now we're wrapping up and planning and prepping for next year. There's a lot of work that's taking place for that. And one of those things is hiring new staff. And we've got that going. So that's about it.
Exciting. We don't have any student advisors for me to pick on tonight. So Matt, do you have anything you'd like to share? Oh, legislative update, Sherry.
All I would say is that, preparing for General Assembly in September, it looks like it will be a very full day. It used to be Friday, Saturday, then they got it to just Saturday. But there has been several, positions to consider and so I was encouraged by Logan for us to look that over. So I think that's great to look at. Thank you, Brenda, for making that copy for me. Just look it over though. And if there's something really popping out to me that you all, I think should just, weigh in on, I will read that over and let you know. Just interested to see. I think what was key to me, and I don't remember who told me this, but basically we have to be careful because if there's a position considered, if we remove that position, then it's off the table, which means we then don't have standing to take it to the legislature. So there's a lot to be said about what we're considering, and something might seem mundane or we take it for granted, but it's important that we still keep those on our list of, there may be several, but it's important to have them so they can be talking points in the future as we need them for the legislature. So other than that, nothing else to share.
All right, now, do you have anything to share?
Not today.
How about Erica?
Oh, sure, I was taking notes about.
I come back to you.
Oh, it's okay. And I just wanted to say, I really enjoy our summer sessions because it feels like summertime. We kind of have this space to expand our connections with each other and have these conversations in our study sessions and our all day meeting that we'll have in August. So I kind of appreciate that summertime where it's not feels like the end of the school year is so many meetings and then it ends. And so that's what happens in my house too. My children are thinking these big thoughts and experiments and there's stuff everywhere and it's great. I like it. And I'm really grateful for the nutrition department updates that we heard in our study session today. I'm excited for that. And for folks who, work for our district that take so much care and thoughtfulness in these tricky subjects like AI, financial struggles, McKinney-Vento, the way that we speak about these things. I just appreciate like I said, the care and the thoughtfulness that goes into approaching those subjects.
You're very thoughtful. Director Watts, anything you'd like to add tonight?
I'll just shout outs to some of the 2025-26 alumni now for the 26th cross country team ran in the Centennial 100K and they got
Yes.
first place
Oh,
by a
wow.
lot.
Wow.
And they named themselves after Coach Murray.
Why did
They were
call
so
themselves that?
excited. I don't know.
Curious.
I don't know. Don't ask. And then they were supposed to give champagne as the prize and they realized who was gonna win. They had to rush to the grocery store and get apple cider. Apple cider. So
I ran
it
in
was
that too,
super
and our
cute.
team got sparkling cider.
Yeah.
Like third person team to finish. It was a hot day.
It was a hot day, yeah, but
Anyway.
they had a lot of fun. We just got back from a family trip, which was much needed. Cross country camp is coming up at the end of this month, so hoping a lot of kids join. It sounds like we're trying to get more numbers on the books, but it's such a great sport, and especially for families coming into the high school. I think it's a great introduction because it's such a bonding. My kids are loving the pickleball court next to her.
That's nice.
Loving it and all their friends. Central. So really excited that our community has that because I think it's kind of a great little meeting place. And then a funny like discussion we had on our trip is my oldest son, who's 27, asked my husband and I, how do you feel about CDs going away? I said, well, we've kind of been through it with cassette tapes, 8 tracks, VHS. I mean, it's like the evolution.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the World Wide Web and how scary that was. And now we have AI. And so it's like, we'll get there. We will definitely get there. It's just navigating it.
CDs have been gone.
No, there's this news story that came out how they're gonna like completely eliminate.
Like,
any-
we can't even buy them anymore
Just like
at all.
vinyl, like, come on.
I mean, you can go to the
It's true, they
thrift
have to
store.
find a computer, my
You can
computer.
get some tips there too, like,
Yeah.
have a CD collection.
Museum.
I have a huge CD.
Alright, that's fine. I want to make sure I did skip you. Do you have anything else to add?
Just enjoying summer, getting projects done, just taking that break from school. It's just nice to do other things, like those other parts of your brain, like, oh, it's nice to dive into that. And nice to hear that other people are enjoying the time and we have just the best weather right now. I just love it. So anyway, enjoying the time together as well. It's a decompression. Like we can actually just kind of be more, I can be more present.
So I want to share that I really enjoyed Erica's helping us with our mural as a board. We've been working on this long-term art project to decorate 2 doors, and it's just been so much fun. And we couldn't do it without Erica and her very kind words as we attempt to be artists. And it's just so fun to do art therapy, and so fun to see art in our community. And I got to go to our street fair this last weekend, and it was just so much fun to see so many people coming together and walking around. And it was crowded. There was like no parking in Arlington, but they had the shuttle, and I love that there was the school parking lots were open, and they had the shuttle coming around. The Boys and Girls Club buses were coming around every 5-10 minutes, and it's just a really great community partnership. And there were so many people that I was able to catch up with and chat with and hang out with, and it was pretty special. And 4th of July, and it's really incredible to live and work in this community and raise our families here. I also wanted to share that I attended a webinar from the State Board of Education about, oh, you were there too?
Yeah.
About the graduation pathways that are going to be changing, the graduation requirements are changing. And I was hoping that we could talk about that later as we learn more about it, because it's going to be a little bit different. And I think, how some people really like change and some people just do not, and there will be some change. And so I think it would be good to get more information about that. And with that, I want to remind everybody about our next meeting. It's not for a little while, so mark your calendar. It is August 10th at 6 p.m. right here in the boardroom. It's just a regular board meeting. And we'll be swearing in our new student advisor. That'll be exciting. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting, please.
I'll second. It has been moved by Director Diamond and seconded by Director Knapp to adjourn the meeting. Madam Clerk.
Director Diamond.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye. Director Watt. Aye. Aye. Meeting's adjourned.